He night the desert obeyed. He asked for rain. Allah gave him something greater. The desert had not seen rain in 8 months. Not a cloud. Not a drop. Not a promise. The wells had begun to whisper before they went silent, that hollow sound of rope descending into darkness and returning with nothing. The animals had stopped fighting over shade. Not because peace had come. Because the energy required for conflict had been consumed by something greater, the slow, patient work of dying. Even the wind had changed. It no longer carried the smell of distant water, the memory of cooler places, the suggestion that the world beyond the dunes was different. Now it carried only heat. Dry. Personal. The kind of heat that does not simply surround a man, it enters him. Occupies him. Reminds him, with every breath, that the desert is not indifferent. It is patient. And the people had begun to change with it. Hope does not disappear all at once. It does not announce itself. It does not pack its belongings and leave through the front door. It retreats quietly, the way water retreats into sand present one moment, and then simply not, and you realize you cannot name the exact moment it left. In a small settlement between Mecca and Medina, there lived a man named Harith ibn Malik. He was not known for wisdom. He was not a scholar or a leader. He did not give speeches at the fire or settle disputes with careful words. He was known for one thing only: surviving. Harith had come to the desert as a young man with a wife, a belief in Allah that was real but untested, and a confidence in his own hands that he had not yet learned to question. He could dig a well faster than any man in the settlement. He could read the ground the way scholars read text. This rock means water nearby, this sand means run, this color in the earth means dig here and dig deep. He was not arrogant. He was simply certain. Certainty is not the same as arrogance. Arrogance knows it is right and does not care if it is wrong. Certainty simply has not yet been given a reason to doubt. Harith's reason came in 2 pieces. The first was a boy named Samir. 4 years old. Round-faced. The kind of child who laughed at his own jokes before he finished telling them. He had his mother's eyes dark, wide, always slightly surprised by the world, as if everything in it was more interesting than expected. He died on a Thursday. Not dramatically. Not with a final speech or a meaningful last moment. He simply stopped breathing one morning before the sun came up, and Harith's wife found him, and the sound she made was not a scream. It was something quieter. Worse. Harith buried him east of the settlement, where the ground was softer. He prayed over the grave. He meant the prayer. The second was a girl named Sarah. She was 6 when she died. Old enough to understand thirst. Old enough to ask for water and understand why there was none. She had her father's stubbornness. She held on longer than anyone expected, longer than the healer thought possible. But the desert is more patient than any child. Harith buried her beside her brother. He prayed over the grave. But this time, the prayer felt different. Not dishonest. Not empty. Different. Like a man speaking to someone standing in the next room, unsure if the door between them was open or closed. The words were the same. But the certainty was gone. After Sarah, Harith did not speak of faith often. He spoke of effort. Of digging. Of walking farther, searching longer, trusting the logic of the earth rather than the silence of the sky. Water is not given, he would say. It is found. The men of the settlement did not argue with him. They had seen what he had buried. They gave him that. The 3rd child became sick in the 7th month of the drought. A girl. Her name was Lena. She was 3 years old and had not yet learned to be afraid of anything. She chased the settlement's goats with a focus that suggested she had a specific plan, though she never caught one. She fell asleep in the middle of meals. She had recently begun repeating the last word of everything anyone said to her, which her mother found exhausting and Harith found quietly devastating in the way that only fathers understand that specific joy of watching a mind arrive. When she stopped speaking, Harith noticed before anyone else. Day 1, she was quiet. He told himself she was tired. Day 2, she did not eat. He told himself the heat had taken her appetite. He had seen it before. Day 3, she stopped moving on her own. She lay on the sleeping mat, eyes open, watching the ceiling of the tent with an expression that had no name, not fear, not pain, but a kind of terrible stillness that Harith had seen twice before and had prayed, in the quiet way of a man who was no longer sure anyone was listening, never to see again. Day 4, her breathing changed. Shallow. Irregular. Each breath arriving as if it had traveled a long distance to get there. His wife, Maryam, said nothing to him that evening. She did not need to. She simply looked at him from across the tent, and in that look was everything: the 2 small graves east of the settlement, the 8 months of empty sky, the specific exhaustion of a woman who had survived more than any person should and was now being asked to survive it again. Harith went outside. He sat in the sand. He looked at the sky. Clear. Vast. Full of stars that had never, in all his life, meant anything except navigation. He sat for a long time. The settlement slept around him. The animals were quiet. Even the wind had stopped, that punishing, purposeless wind, and in its absence the silence was so complete it felt like a physical thing. Like a room with walls. He did not plan to speak. He had not planned to pray in years. But the silence was too large. And Lena's breathing was too small, and Harith ibn Malik, man of effort and certainty and calloused hands, opened his mouth in the dark and said, "Allah." He stopped. He did not know how to continue. The formal words felt wrong, too rehearsed, too distant from whatever this moment actually was. So he said the only thing he had. The truth. "Allah, if you are there, I have nothing left to offer you. No perfect words. No clean heart. I have been angry at you for years and I have not admitted that until this moment, and I am admitting it now because I have nothing else. I don't know how to ask properly. I stopped knowing. But she is 3 years old and she has not done anything to deserve this, and I am asking you not as someone worthy of being heard, but because she is 3 years old and I have nowhere else to go." He stopped. The silence held. No thunder. No wind. No sign. The stars continued their indifferent burning. Harith almost laughed. He felt it rise in his chest, that dark, exhausted laughter of a man who has confirmed what he suspected. But then he stopped. Because the wind did not return. It stopped more completely than before. Not gradually. Not slowly. All at once. As if something had commanded it. He heard the footsteps before he saw the figure. Steady. Unhurried. Coming from the direction of the open desert, not from the settlement, not from any road Harith knew. A man stood at the edge of the camp. Harith rose slowly. The figure was calm in a way that Harith had no category for. Not the calm of someone who had accepted defeat. Not the calm of someone who did not understand the situation. Something else. The calm of someone who existed in a different relationship with time than ordinary men, someone for whom urgency and patience were not opposites but the same thing, seen from different distances. "Who are you?" Harith asked. The man did not answer the question. Why did you stop asking? The words landed differently than Harith expected. Not as an accusation. Not with edge or judgment. As an actual question. As if the man genuinely wanted to understand. I asked, Harith said. For years I asked. Nothing came. And tonight. Harith looked back toward the tent. Toward the sound or the absence of sound of Lena's breathing. My daughter is dying. A silence. Then, come. They walked into the desert. No torch. No light except the stars that had never, in Harith's experience, served any purpose except to remind a man how small he was. The settlement fell away behind them. Harith did not ask where they were going. He did not know why. Some part of him, the part that had prayed tonight without planning to, the part that had used the word nowhere else to go and meant it, that part had simply stopped requiring explanations. They walked for what felt like a long time. The man in front of him did not speak. Harith's mind filled the silence with everything it had been carrying: Samir's laugh, Sarah's stubbornness, Lena's habit of repeating the last word of everything, Mariam's face across the tent, the 2 graves in the soft ground east of the settlement, the 8 months of empty sky. Then the man stopped. In a place that looked exactly like every other place in the desert. Flat sand. No outcropping. No discoloration in the earth. No sign of any kind. Dig, the man said. Harith looked at him. There is nothing here. Dig. Harith almost argued. Every instinct he had, every year of reading the ground, every lesson his hands had learned told him this location was wrong. Wrong color. Wrong depth. Wrong everything. But he dropped to his knees. He began to dig. The sand was dry. Expected. He pushed deeper. Still dry. Still nothing. His fingers found the hard layer beneath the loose surface and pressed through it. Nothing. 5 minutes. 10. His hands were bleeding. Not badly, small cuts from the rocks that the sand concealed. He barely noticed. He was watching the ground with the focus of a man who no longer trusted his own assessment of what was possible. 15 minutes. Nothing. The anger came quietly. This is the same ground I have been standing on for 8 months. There is nothing here. There has never been anything here. I am digging in the dark because a stranger told me to, and my daughter is in that tent, and I am here, putting my bleeding hands into sand that will give me nothing, because I have nothing left and nowhere else to go, and apparently this is what that looks like. He stopped. His hands flat on the dry earth. There is no water here, he said. His voice was not loud. It was the voice of a man stating something he did not have the energy to be angry about. I know this ground. I have been reading desert ground my entire life. There is nothing here. The man behind him did not move. Dig. One word. Not louder than before. Not harder. The same voice. The same quality, that unhurried, unfrightened certainty that did not argue and did not explain and did not need to. Harith closed his eyes. In the darkness behind his eyelids he saw Lena. Not sick. Not still. Running after the goats with that absurd, focused determination. He opened his eyes. He dug. Harder than before. Past the point where his hands hurt. Past the point where his back protested. Past the logic of a man who trusted only what his hands could verify, deeper into a territory that had no name, that he had spent 40 years avoiding, that turned out to be the place just past the end of certainty. And then the ground changed. Not wet. But cooler. By a single degree. Maybe less. Harith froze. His fingers pressed deeper. He pressed again. And the earth broke. Not like soil giving way. Like a door opening, like something beneath the surface had been waiting for exactly this pressure, this moment, this specific set of bleeding hands. The water did not trickle, it surged. Cold and clear and violent, bursting upward through the sand, soaking his hands, his arms, flooding the hole he had made and continuing outward, spreading across the desert floor in the darkness, catching the starlight, turning the dead ground into something luminous and alive. Harith fell backward. He sat in the spreading water and could not speak. Could not move. The cold was real. The wet was real. The smell, that specific smell of water in a place that had been without it, was realier than anything he had experienced in 8 months. He stared at his own hands. Submerged now. Bleeding. Trembling. This. He whispered. He had no word for what this was. Nothing given by Allah is impossible. Harith turned. The man was gone. No shadow. No footsteps retreating into the dark. The desert behind him was empty in every direction, the same flat, open nothing that it had always been. Only the water remained. Flowing outward. As if it had always been there. As if it had been waiting not for the right location, but for the right man. Harith ran. Faster than he had in years. Faster than he thought his body still remembered how. Into the camp. Through the sleeping settlement. Into the tent. Lena lay still. Too still. He fell beside her. His hands soaking wet, trembling, leaving dark prints on the dry sleeping mat. Lena. Nothing. Lena. He touched her face. Her skin was hot, the specific terrible heat of a body that has been giving everything it has for days and is running out of reserves to give. He cupped water from his wet hands against her cracked lips. Almost nothing left in his palms. Just the residue of the surge cold water on warm skin. Lena, I am here. The silence lasted long enough that Mariam woke. Sat up. Saw his face. And said nothing, because there was nothing to say that would survive that silence intact. Then. A breath. Not a gasp. Not dramatic. Small. Quiet. But different from the breaths before. Deeper. Less effortful. As if something that had been working very hard had been allowed, finally, to rest. Her eyes opened. She looked at him. And she said in that small, certain voice of a 3-year-old who does not yet know that some moments are supposed to be speechless, Baba. Harith put his face in his hands. His shoulders shook. Not from grief. From something he had buried so long ago he had forgotten it had a name. Mariam did not say anything. She simply placed her hand on his back and left it there. Outside, somewhere in the dark desert, the water was still flowing. By morning, they knew. The water had reached the outer wells. The channels the settlement had cut years ago dry for 8 months, cracked and forgotten, were running again. Animals crowded the edges, drinking with the focused desperation of creatures that have understood thirst in their bodies. People gathered. They looked at Harith. What happened, they asked. Where did it come from? How did you find it? He stood among them. He looked at the water. At the sky, which was the same sky, still clear, still vast, still full of a blue that gave nothing away. He looked at his hands. Still marked from the digging. Cuts healing in the particular way that desert skin heals, already closing, already becoming part of the record of the night. I thought water was something a man finds, he said. He paused. Last night I was shown that water is something Allah gives. He stopped. Not because he had nothing else to say, but because everything else he might have said felt like a smaller version of that. Years passed. The settlement grew. The well that Harith had opened that night never ran dry, not in the years of drought that followed, not in the seasons that tested other settlements and spared theirs. People told the story. Some embellished it. Some questioned it. Some found logical explanations: underground aquifers, geological formations, the mathematics of water beneath desert sand. Harith never argued with them. He had been a man of measurement himself. He understood the comfort of explanation. But he also knew what he had felt when the stranger said dig, and he had continued past the point where his hands knew what they were doing, past certainty, past logic, past everything he had built his life on, into that open territory that turned out not to be emptiness. Into that place just past surrender, where the ground breaks and the water rises. Allah withholds so that a man might learn what he is withholding from. Allah gives so that a man might understand what giving means. And sometimes he sends a stranger into the desert to ask a single question. Why did you stop asking? The answer is always the same. We stopped because we forgot that the one we were asking was listening the whole time.